Steiner. As I have been able to tell you in the last few days, anyone who attains to visions of the higher worlds bears images within him of his own inner life and is at first guided by what is in those images. It is the same with the understanding of things in the supersensible world. Understanding precedes seeing, is in no way influenced by it, nor does it exercise any influence over it. Previous understanding need not in the least affect what brings man to a vision of what is completely unprejudiced and in accordance with truth. On the contrary, previous understanding and grasping of these things with all-round powers of judgment, to which it must be admitted there is little inclination among people nowadays, prepare the heart and soul to enter into the appropriate way into the power of vision. Thus, we must continually repeat that true occultism, true science of the spirit, with sincere and earnest intention, will never draw back before the demand that we should dispassionately grasp and understand what is said, that we should try to penetrate it with sound human understanding and with powers of judgment that flow freely in every sphere. We shall then find it possible. A good deal about these matters will be found in my book, A Road to Self-Knowledge, where much that is complementary to these lectures is contained. But special mention should be made of how something significant can contribute to the purification and cleansing of the soul when effort is made by those who seek the way of the science of the spirit out of the darkness of life. Above all, mention should be made of how to understand things and to grasp them objectively with what every man, if only he is willing, can have at his disposal in the sound power of judgment. By this way of sound understanding, by this refusal of all authority and all authorized belief, we gain special light when we come to certain refinements in occult observation. From the whole spirit and meaning of these lectures, it will have appeared that, as the steps are taken towards initiation, it becomes increasingly a matter of each man being independent as regards his experience of everything for which his physical body can serve him as an instrument. He must learn to experience in his higher bodies, in his etheric body, in his astral body, and also in what may be called his ego or thought body. The essential thing at every stage of initiation is this making oneself capable of perceiving in the higher bodies. In this connection, however, it is necessary for a man to do something in order to free himself of his physical sensory body. He must consciously divest himself, strip himself of everything that binds him to the world, insofar as in this linking, this binding, the physical body lends itself as a tool. This, of course, is not possible for everyone, especially in an age as materialistic as this. It is at least of all possible for those who give their opinion about the riddles and phenomena of the universe, those who by the present peculiar methods of education are brought up to the belief that already in earliest youth it is possible to attain, not merely to try to do so, consider judgment about world phenomena. Why is it that so much harm is done in the world nowadays by judgment formed purely out of passion and emotion? When we look through what appears in print in the world, we see that the book trade is flooded with the most immature productions arising simply out of sympathies and antipathies. Why is this, it may also be asked? Were there not in former times, too, men who, out of the darkness of life, confronted the results of supersensible investigation with hatred and aversion, even as today? Were there not men of darkness, such as the materialists of today, who availed themselves of every possible method that hatred, ignorance, and darkness could suggest? The answer is that there were always such men, but they never worked in the way they work today. And why? Sometimes we have to pause and make note of such things in our conscience. There have been men who have hated the world and all unprejudiced penetration into higher worlds, because this may sometimes bring to light most uncomfortable facts. But such men in the past could often neither read or write. Their level of education fell short. Those holding such opinions today are able by means of education, through reading and writing, and the public at large has no power of discriminating between the various things that appear in the press, nor do they know how to appreciate them at their proper value. There is not much will to develop discrimination so as to come to the realization that, in this age, there is need for the sifting and purifying intervention of a movement that combines occultism with the science of spirit. Men have had many different things to learn. Simply from the facts revealed by higher worlds, there is much to be learned. For instance, it will have to be learned that even when, through partial schooling or preparation of the soul, organism, or other organisms, one does penetrate into higher worlds, even then it may be possible for a good deal to remain in respect of the bond with the external world that arises by way of the physical senses. Once the boundary that is so firmly drawn between the life of the senses and the spiritual life is crossed by the spiritual seer, all that still remains of certain justifiable weaknesses in the sensory existence when experienced in higher spiritual vision enwraps him in a darkness, in maya. Only by incessantly taking ourselves to task during this period when we are seeing into the spiritual world can we, as a being there, completely shut out all that we must necessarily have in sensory existence. Only by making sure that during spiritual vision there will be no interplay of what surrounds us in the sensory world shall we be able to see, unadulterated and free of illusion, the spiritual supersensible world. All right, I got another story for you. Let's go back to my early beginnings in my psychic days, and it was really a trip when I started reading tarot cards. And I can remember doing a reading for myself, and that final card was the Tower. And for any of those of you that study tarot, you know that the idea behind that card would be, through your ego and your material possessions, you build your tower and you climb your tower and you sit on top of it and say, I'm king shit at Turd Ball Mountain or something. And, the whole thing comes crumbling down in whatever way it may be. And that used to terrify me. But, not everything should be taken so literally. To get all this in. Okay, so we're going to pick back up. Okay. Such is the ascent from life in the senses to spiritual life. Whereas man can ordinarily only perceive what is going on in his instrument of reflection, what is a reflection he sees in his brain? By means of initiation, he comes to direct experience and perception in his etheric body. Then, on reaching this inner experience and perception, he comes into touch with quite another world, that of essential being. His own being, his experience, his perception, widen out beyond the objective world. What he then experiences is a world of spiritual being that he may also experience in sensory experience as far as the periphery of what is experienced is concerned. But only then can he rise to grasping something in spiritual existence that is here only present for us as a physical image. Then he can understand that the impulses of initiates did not merely flow from earthly wisdom, but the great initiates had come to their greatest impulses moral impulses, and so forth, and work with such mighty power because all they have is not merely taken from the earth, it is received by them from what is far beyond the earth. For as soon as man gets beyond the earth, he there comes to what is bound up with earthly existence. If through initiation he passes from earthly existence to cosmic experience, then he comes to experiences. If he studies an initiate such as Buddha, for instance, when he can say he has lived on earth as Bodhisattva through many incarnations. Whoever has learned to understand Buddhism in this connection must of necessity become as believing as a Buddhist. He will know that in the personality of Gautama Buddha, this individuality lived for the last time in the physical body. In his incarnation, however, he became Buddha and has now ascended for spiritual work in spiritual worlds, so that the spiritual vision can be directly to the passing of the Buddha individuality from earthly life to spiritual life, to association in spiritual existence. If you then trace this individuality back, you will see how, as a Bodhisattva, he passed through many incarnations. At length, however, you come to an earlier time when you can no longer say, we are here dealing with an individuality living on the earth. Because then you have to follow him to an earlier abode. And the change in this outstanding individuality is so represented that he grows right out beyond earthly existence. Then at a certain time, we see the Buddha descending from another planet of our solar system, wherein he previously worked. We see him at work there preparing himself for his earthly course. We follow him on through this course on earth as Bodhisattva, and at length as Buddha, to the point when, from being a Bodhisattva, he becomes a Buddha. We find that, whereas during his earthly incarnations his activity had indeed grown together with the earth, yet at the same time he was growing into a great cosmic whole. We see him ascend to another planet of the planetary system, to Mars, there to undertake a new mission closely united with the mission on Earth. It is wonderful to follow how a totality appears in this way. First, we see Buddha active on another planet. Then he comes down to Earth, and we must say, this individuality of the initiate, Gautama Buddha, worked for a while on Earth. After that, however, if we follow him further, we must ascend to another planet. In this way, we get an unbroken line. It is thus possible to say of Buddha that he came down from another planet, and after working on Earth, again ascended to a different planet, inhabited by a people who have little understanding of earthly mankind. There he continues to work, because this further work is of great significance. So, here again, can you imagine the greatness of who you really are as a being through time and space? And also realize that there's going to be a few sucky stories in there too. Okay. Next up, another incredible spiritual visual masterpiece for your eyes. And this one is